So, good evening. We want to welcome everyone to the Financial Forecast Committee meeting on Tuesday, June 9th at 5 p.m. Participating remotely on the conference call are Paul Donlin, Peter Gates, Ron Griffin, and Bill Burkhead. In the room are the rest of the members of the Financial Forecast Committee, and the chairman, Mr. Vignani, will be here shortly to join us. Could I have a motion to accept the agenda, please?
Motion to accept.
Second.
There was a motion by Mr. Karsha, seconded by Pam. Well, I'm going to give it to Pam. Since this is this meeting is being held this way, we have to have a roll call vote. So Pam?
Here.
Yes?
Yes.
See.
Sorry, yes.
That's all right.
Here, yes.
Joe?
Here.
Chris?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Nancy? Yes. Paul?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
I declare that a 10-0 unanimous vote by roll call. We also have on our agenda is to review and approve the minutes from May 15th, 2020. Did everyone have a chance to review that?
I did?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Kelly. Second by Mr. DeVito. Again, this is a roll call vote. Is there any discussion? Pam?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Nancy's a yes. Paul?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
I call that as a unanimous vote by roll call, 10-0. Just a quick fiscal 20 year-to-date update. The local receipts, the revenue forecast for fiscal 20 has been met and exceeded. The real estate taxes stand at 97% collected with $1.7 million outstanding currently. The state aid is on target with what is expected with 11/12 of the year being collected. And we still have received over $400,000 in federal reimbursements for prior year storms that were not budgeted. And we're expecting another $190,000 before fiscal year end. So that was a little bit of where the revenues are for fiscal 20. If only we had such good news for fiscal 21. I don't know if, Jim, you want to move forward with what the recommendations are for 21 and how you want to discuss them?
Yeah, why don't we go forward? Does anybody have any questions about 20?
Congratulations.
Yeah, just a quick question, if you don't mind, Nancy. Nancy and I had discussed this with you before, but at $1.7 million at this time, that's not typical of what happens in Scituate, right?
No, we would expect it to be between 600 and 800,000 outstanding by the end of the fiscal year, but where the demands would be issued later this year, and I think Pam's working on that currently, we will... 12. So that means that they'll be due within the fiscal year, so that should bring in another wave of payments.
Okay. So this affects our free cash for this year, right?
It will affect our liquidity. Our taxes are always 100% collectible.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
No, so just anybody on the line who didn't understand that, we the way our bookkeeping works, we assume 100% collection in our taxes. So from a budgetary standpoint, we collect everything, but if it doesn't come in, it's a liquidity thing, cash on hand, as opposed to a budget issue. So, but once Pam gets the demands out, that number should shrink down to about what our normal course is. So the reason today for the meeting, can everybody hear me, by the way?
Yes.
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 Right now, the plan is to go forward with town meeting on the 27th to try to do a budget for fiscal 21. I think we all agree that the state numbers are going to be less than what we have in the current FY21 budget that we've approved. And not having a budget in place, every month we do a 1/12 based on this year's budget is a deeper hole that we're digging for ourselves next year. Because I don't think those numbers are going to be as high as this year's numbers. They're going to be significantly lower. So we need to put something before town meeting reflecting at least what we think those numbers are going to be at this point. It's my recommendation that we put a budget on town meeting floor that would reflect a 10% reduction in state aid from FY '20 levels, which would have been the forecasting model number 3 that Nancy sent out after the last meeting.
Would you make that in the form of a motion, Mr. Boudreau?
I'll move that the Financial Forecast Committee adopt Financial Model 3, representing a 10% reduction in state aid for fiscal '21 from fiscal '20 levels.
Discussion?
There's no second yet.
I need a second.
Second.
I second it.
All right, motion's made and seconded. Discussions, Mr. Kelly.
Is this realistic? Is this where you feel we're going to be?
I think it could go higher.
If we
But
go higher, what do you mean by
meaning
higher?
that the reduction could be higher than 10%, we could be in even worse shape. But I have to believe that the federal government is going to do something. But at least at 10%, what we have to make up if it goes deeper is less than if we just left it alone. So if it goes to 15%, then that's a number we can discuss on how we're going to get there in the spring. But I think 10% is reasonable. You know, it's just my gut saying I think it's going to be worse. But 10% based on what we've looked at over the past recessions and things like that, I think is a good number for town meeting, and then we can adjust it if we have to.
Do you have any indication from Washington that there will be increased state and local aid?
So there's 2 potential rescues for state municipal budgets. The first one is the CARES Act, which is already passed. Plymouth County has $90 million to distribute in CARES Act funds. That is for COVID-19 expenses only. Scituate's share of that, as based on the county's formula, is 2.8, Nance?
Yes.
Is around 2.8 million. Our expenses right now are probably approaching 300,000, what we've done and what we're doing. There has been talk about changing the CARES Act to allow CARES Act funds to also be used for revenue replacement as opposed to just COVID expenses. So that's number one. The House of Representatives has also passed something called the HEROES Act, which has, I believe, $500 billion in it for state and local governments. Is that going to pass the Senate? I don't know, but there are 2 potential vehicles that can help us out. I just can't see the federal government allowing local governments and states to stall the recovery, because we're the next round of layoffs. If we don't get some sort of relief from the federal government, cities, towns, and states are going to start bleeding employees, and the red ink is just going to start going up with more unemployment claims. So I'm optimistic they're going to do something. I just don't know when or how much. Anything else, Jerry?
No, I think the 2.8 million, which is a net of 2.5 million, if you can use it for other than COVID, that's good news.
That'd be very good news for us, yeah.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
And also, if I'm not mistaken, and I looked at my revenues and all the stabilization funds we have, is there $4.2 million in the stabilization fund as of June 30th, 2019?
Yes.
I mean, that's a backstop. I know that's not where we want to go, but we're going to have plenty of time to get there by the spring or the fall town meeting if we really, really, really need to get there.
Yeah, I think that's
That's
a
not-
conversation, Paul, if it starts bleeding below 10%, it gets into the
Yep.
15-20% range, I think that's probably a conversation we're gonna have to have.
Yep.
You know, the
Yep.
problem with using stabilization funds or free cash, that just builds a deficit into your budget that at some point you're gonna have to pay.
I understand. I'm well there. I'm there.
So,
But
Ms. Kasha,
I know.
any questions?
I have nothing, sir.
Joe DeVito,
No.
Pam,
Nope.
Ron Griffin, anything?
Yeah, a couple of quick things, actually. One comment, one question. I'd support the FY20 minus 10%. That's the model we talked about at our last meeting. It's also the model that we've been shopping with a lot of our employees, talking about, you know, what the potential impacts might be and educating them on it, and then trying to find ways within the school district to ensure that we can close that deficit without reductions in force. and without impacting students directly. My question has to do with town meeting. I know this is new territory for everybody, but maybe to Jim and Nancy, I'd just like to get your perspective and your thinking about if town meeting is outside on the field and it rains, like is there a Sunday day? How does that work? Does that delayed vote automatically trigger a 112? Walk me through the thinking if you don't mind.
Thinking? We're supposed to be thinking, Ron? We didn't
I know
pick,
you've got a backup. I just don't know yet.
I spoke to the moderator about this at length. We didn't want to pick a rain date right away because if it's raining on Saturday, it's going to rain Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. We didn't want to say Sunday, Monday's the rain date, and then have to postpone it again. So the thought is we are going to meet Saturday morning if the weather's poor, decide what we're going to do, look at the weather forecast, and then pick a postponement date from there. Hopefully some night that week before the 31st or the 30th. How many days in June?
30.
30. I don't even know anymore.
30.
If we go into July, then the 112 budget would kick in until such time as we had a town meeting.
So,
But in talking to Jim Toomey, if the weather's just not nice, it's drizzly but not pouring rain, it's his intention to go forward with town meeting.
All right. Pack your parka, pack your umbrella. Got it.
Yeah.
and our 1/12 budget has already been submitted and approved with the Department of Revenue, so we are ready to go if something happens with that June 27th date.
Got it. And then the second question I've got for, again, maybe Jim and Nancy here. So I imagine if this body votes to approve FY20 minus 10% as the marker, would you likely need a vote from both BOS and school committees to approve budgets at that new level going into town meeting?
It'd be my intention to have a selectmen's meeting between now and then, put that before town meeting, and have a finance committee, advisory board meeting, put it before the advisory board also. So, yeah, vote of the
Great.
school committee would also be good.
Got it. Okay. That's it for me. I'm on board with that. That makes sense.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah, hold on, Jerry.
My question is, so you're asking us to approve this fiscal 20 less 10%, and that creates a shortfall of $1.5 million.
Sorry.
And $1 million of that has to be absorbed by the schools. Have you started to take steps in order to realize that savings?
I have not. Ron, have you heard that?
Yeah, I can answer that, Jerry. So since our last meeting back in whatever it was, May 15th or so, and even before that, we had conversations with all of our major unions. We're in the process of working out MOAs now that go out to their constituencies this week, early next. It's my hope that we'll have votes on those MOAs along with some adjustments to our operating expenses that can close this Model 3 gap. So the $999,000, whatever it is, $895, right? That gap for Model 3, that's what we've been working off of for the past 3-4 weeks now. And so that's our intention. We're hopeful to have votes on that the week of the 22nd. So that week leading right into the annual town meeting.
And that includes, Jerry, for your edification, concessions from all of our major unions, especially the teachers. When it comes
Along
to
with
that.
administrative adjustments as well.
Administrative,
About
everybody.
half closing that gap. Yep.
Yep.
Excuse me, Ron, just for the minutes, when did you expect to have those votes? What date?
So the week of June 22nd, and I'm still waiting to get confirmation from all the major unions, but we've been having multilateral talks for, I guess, a few weeks now. So most of them are lining up the week of June 22nd. I don't have specific dates for each of them, but if you need that in the next couple of days, I should have that available for you guys as well.
Anything else, Ron?
That's it, guys. Appreciate your support.
Paul Donlin, anything?
I'm good.
Peter?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Number one, well, first of all, I'm on board with the less 10%. I think that's reasonable, and I think that nobody really knows what to expect. Obviously, the more information we have and timing of it will be helpful. So as you get it to forward on would be great. My next comment isn't necessarily in relation to that. I think I brought this up last year, but I just want to look at the line item under new growth. I know obviously we're conservative with that number and we're budgeting 650, but I know last year's actuals were 980, but I can't really read it, 985, 925. I wonder if Joe could comment on that, to think how conservative that number is. I know that, as we all drive around town, we see these new homes going up, and not only that, homes are not even on the market and they're selling. I went on a walk yesterday. There were 10 houses I passed. Every single one of them had a sale pending. So I'm thinking this pandemic is creating, Scituate is a more desirable place, more than it previously was. And obviously this new growth number directly impacts the budget that's, the available funds for the school. So I'm wondering if that 650 is reasonable, or if I know we've discussed it at length, but if we might want to increase that, even $50,000.
Well, my philosophy is always to be conservative with that number, so it is conservative. I have not completed a lot of my inspections. I probably still have 400 more inspections to complete over the next 2 months for properties that have taken out permits and so forth. I'm very comfortable with the 650. My guess is it would be higher, but without getting out there and actually conducting the work. Right now that number 650 is comfortable because I've picked up the new houses, the new condos at Seaside, and so forth. And really, the remaining permits, short of a few dozen, are just small additions, decks, pools, things like that. So I at this point, I don't feel comfortable going much higher than that.
And I just want to point out.
And I know I brought this up last year. I'm not sure it's the appropriate time to talk about it, but I will. Obviously last year, fiscal year 2020, we budgeted 650 and actuals are 985. The difference of over $300,000, of which 2/3 theoretically could have been, added to the school budget. So in this period of obviously budget constraint, if we have another period of, $900,000, of which 2/3 comes to the district, that could really help us overcome our current budget deficit issues.
I mean, you wouldn't have another 900.
I wanted to be...
You'd have another 300. You'd get 2 of it, not 9. It's already at 650.
Correct, but still, right. And that we get 66 and 2/3 of 300,000. So roughly what, 190,000, whatever that number is. So I'm just looking out, obviously, for the school department when we're looking to cut $1 million out of our budget, and we could reasonably offset that by 150,000 if we were more in line with what our actual new growth would be. I at least wanted to mention, I think it's my duty as a representative from the school committee. And then lastly, again,
hold on, Nancy wanted to say, Pete, Nancy wanted to say something on that, and then I'm going to jump in real quick.
Just 2 things. One,
okay.
The reason the inspections weren't done were because of the pandemic. Joe wasn't able to go into people's homes for reasons, so I didn't want anyone to assume that Joe just wasn't getting it done. Joe couldn't get it done, and neither could our contractors. But the other issue, what you mentioned about that delta with the 300,000, that's what we did in fiscal 20, is at the fall town meeting with the additional state aid, it was put back into the budget.
Okay.
So, Peter, that's...
Okay.
The biggest mistake you can make in budgeting is try to make your revenues fit what you want to spend instead of the other way around. But in being conservative, being conservative with that number now at 10%, if the state comes back and says we're going to take another 3% out of you, that's a place we can go to not have to cut a budget again.
Okay. Jim, I fully agree with you. That's how I run my own, my own personal balance sheet. Like, I get it. I'm fully on board. I'm just, looking back historically, I'm assuming that, we have to budget conservatively. But if we budget conservatively and the excess goes into free cash or stabilization, it doesn't necessarily get funneled to the school department, which we otherwise would be eligible to receive. But I get it. I agree. I think we need to be conservative in our budgeting. I just at least wanted to ask that question. And with that being said, again, not sure this is the right forum to do it, but we do have a revenue reduction in the form of, we have full-day kindergarten fees for which folks are asking for reimbursement. We have bus fees that are being asked for reimbursement, and those are, some fees that we're being challenged with. So in relation to the state aid or money that's earmarked with Plymouth County right now, if they can open that up to increase standards for which are eligible expenses, we would greatly, or our taxpayers would greatly benefit by those, because a lot of those funds would be going to our families.
Did we ask that question, didn't we?
I looked at the regs from the U.S. Treasury, and it didn't look like it would qualify. I can ask directly of the
We'll
county
ask
commissioners.
directly Plymouth County whether they think that's reimbursable or not. Pete?
Okay, yeah. I would hope that they're going to expand it if it doesn't allow it for right now.
And
And then also, I would anticipate to some degree that folks might be hesitant to pay their full-day K fees now without knowing what it's going to look like next year, and also with bus fees. So we could theoretically see a reduction in those revenues as well. But Ron and Paul's done a great job thus far in budgeting for that for next year, but those are some concerns that may come up. So if we can see how we may best be able to gain access to some of those funds, that would be very beneficial.
Okay. Anything else, Pete?
Man, I could go on for days, but no, I'm good.
Bill Burkett, you want to chime in anything, Bill? You still coming?
No, I'm good. I support it as well, and Paul and Ron have kept me abreast. So, I agree with the 10% and everything that's been said so far. So, thank you.
Okay. Anybody have anything else?
And I'm still coming.
I'll see you on Friday. Anything else? Anybody have anything else? Nancy? And ask Nancy. All right, so we have a motion. The motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Nancy, want to call the roll, please?
Yeah. Mr. Boudreau?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Nancy is a yes. Paul?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Yeah. Unanimous. Thank you. I want to thank everybody for their patience on this. 20 plus years I've been doing this. We've always gotten something from the state that said, expect this much. Even though they don't give you a number, they tell you what to expect. This is the first time in my career we've been this late in the fiscal year and the state is looking at us, throwing their hands up, going, I don't know. So, kind of groping as we go here, but I appreciate all your participation. I appreciate your support. And we'll get through it one way or the other. We'll get through it. So, anybody have anything else for the good of the order?
So just to confirm, so we're going to use are we using the draft revision from 515, or will Nancy, you send out just the final one?
I can send out a final one.
Okay. Just want to make sure that we have the right one, so the most up-to-date one.
Okay, Jared?
Do we need to discuss the items on Paul's email?
Paul's email.
Yeah, Paul sent an email along regarding adjustments in various line items.
I didn't see it.
I didn't see it either.
Yeah, it came in this morning at 6 a.m.
Yeah, hold on, that's what I was
Paul, you sent an email?
Not me. At 6 o'clock, I had a cup of coffee and my drinks done.
No, I got the same one. It was odd. That's why it came from you, Paul. It was odd.
All right, let's take a look at it. It might be some sort of spam, but
No,
we haven't
no.
seen it.
This is, it was addressed to the committee from Paul Donlin, but signed by Nancy. And it was just 3 line items. Adjusting the VOTEC line item, adjusting forecast debt service, and reducing health insurance estimates.
That was a long time ago, I think, that was sent.
I
Yeah.
just got
That
it
might have got stuck in
this
here.
morning.
No, this is
I just
dated June
got that
9th,
today, too.
2020.
Well, let's just address the 3 things. Debt service, there's nothing to adjust. It's issued. The South Shore VOTEC, Paul did reach out to Superintendent Hickey, and they are going to make adjustments, but they're going to make the adjustments internally, and they aren't going to change their assessments. And what was the third one, Jerry?
Health insurance, reducing health insurance.
And we weren't going to make any changes to health insurance, as Pam pointed out at the last meeting, is that with people being unemployed, we will see more people come onto our plan because their spouses are still employed here. So we want to keep whatever buffer we have there, not that we have much of a buffer at all.
We've already seen that, haven't we, Pam?
Yes,
Yeah, we've seen people
absolutely.
coming
A lot of more people.
on. All right, anybody with Jerry have anything else? No? All right, with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
I'll
So
make
moved.
that motion.
Motion by Paul Donlin, seconded by Mr. Kelly. All those in favor by roll, please.
Pam?
Yes.
Yes.
Joe? Chris?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Nancy, yes. Paul?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.